1409 31st Street. I wanted to come before council in regards to the amendment to the codified ordinance of 505.6, having, it talks about having livestock, keeping livestock. I actually just wanted to touch bases on a few things. I think that it's great that you put it together. It's being very helpful, but I wanted to just address a couple things. The first part underneath of the actual ordinance is number 2 under location. I'm struggling with the fact that there are other areas of the community that are being left out of this situation to be able to have backyard chickens if they want them. You've only got listed R1, but there's R1, R2, and R3. Everyone in this community should have the opportunity that has what you have specified here, single-family residence on their site. And I think that should be available anywhere in the city, not just designating one area. I also wanted to talk about number 3, which is structure and location. A is the first one, as far as a fenced yard, is what I would call, would be a way to keep them in your yard to begin with, but it stipulates that they need to be in an area already fenced, probably adjacent to the hen house. But it says also that it stipulates in C that it's subject to, the fences are subject to building code requirements, applicated rules, regulations, including limitations on fence height. Okay, well, we're not provided with that. We don't know what those codes are, and we don't know whether or not they are being created or if they already exist. So that really is something not known by the public. The rest of that I seem to not have an issue with. But number 4 in limitations is where you have the maximum of 2 hens. If you've done any research on them, they recommend that you have no less than 3. 6 is ideal. And if the 4-H wants to be involved in it with their children, it should maybe be 8. And so there is questions on that in the availability of what you need. But, hens do stop actually laying when they molt. They also reduce in egg laying. I'm sorry, I had that backwards, egg laying. In the winter months. So you have to acclimate, as far as your eggs, try to do what you can, freeze them or whatever, the yolks. Anyway, I wanted to bring up those 2 things. And then also you have in there about the health regulations, and that it may further limit the number or the manner of keeping the hens. That's kind of left open too. It's like we have no idea what that consists of. And it needs to be, some of these things need to be explained a little bit further to the public so that they understand what they're looking at. Also continue on to L, the flight feathers being clipped if, at least one of them to prevent the flight. If that happens and you're doing that, I don't understand why they can't just be in a fenced-in yard certain times, to be able to forage. That foraging is so important in the health of the eggs and the chickens. And so as long as you've got your fenced-in yard, they can't fly. They should be able to roam freely some parts of the day to where that they can forage. And I was really taken back with this on M and N in that part, and the fact of misdemeanors. Any persons owning or keeping or harboring any hen which runs at large within the city shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. Okay, what about the dogs? Dogs have been known to be off their leash and running all over. Do they get, a misdemeanor against them because of that? Okay, Russ is shaking his head, yes.
Where the dog ordinance.
I know, but is it...
Animals running in large ordinance.
Well, we have had people come in the public forum and complain about dogs not being on a leash.
We have people complain about lots of things.
Yeah, and cats and whatnot and everything. But misdemeanors, I think, is a little bit stiff. You're not going to most generally have them unless they accidentally get out. It's not something that a person would intentionally do. And it says any other violation of this ordinance shall be a misdemeanor. Like I said, I think those things are kind of stiff. I don't know how much is enforced within the city on these other things. But other than that, I just wanted to see if these changes and other information be provided, and to be able to help the community to work towards self-sufficiency and be able to take care of themselves. And I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Henry Sasson.
Henry Sasson, 1307 Greenmount Hills Drive in Vienna. What am I here to talk about today? Swim. What else have I been talking about? If you guys haven't seen the news, back on February 4th, there was one heck of a regional swim meet up at Brooke County. 14 schools in the region, and we slugged it out until event number 22, which was the 400 freestyle relay. If we came in second, we would have won by 1. But we ended up losing by 3 because number 1 and 2 flip-flop. Morgantown ended up coming in second. South came in first. So Parkersburg's got 2 good teams going to states, which are next week. Parkersburg Big Red sent in the biggest team that they've sent. We got 12 boys, 7 girls. South has got 10 boys, 7 girls. We got a good chance for Parkersburg to represent number 1 and number 2 in the state in swimming. All the obstacles and hurdles we have, we got a good shot at it. For those of you that have never been to a high school swim championship, you're invited. Going through, you can get tickets on gofan.com. The meet starts on Saturday, or I should say on Thursday, the 16th of February. The prelims for events 1 through 12 start at 9:45 a.m. And for the first 12 events, the finals run at 5:45 or 4:45 p.m. So they run the prelims in the morning, and in the afternoon they do the finals for the final 8. Day 2 is events 13 through 22, same thing. And, going through, you'll see what happens when the state of West Virginia, all the swimmers in high school, converge upon the Milan Aquatic Center. It's packed, standing room only, parking wherever you can park. It's great. So that's what's going on. Just wanted you guys to know that Parkersburg's got a good shot for being 1 and 2 because we represented 1 and 2 in Region 1. Thank you.
James DeMoss.
Hi, good evening. First of all, thank you all for your service. My name is James DeMoss. I was born in West Virginia. I served in the Air Force for 23 years. I've lived in Vienna now for the last 12 years. I'm retired and service-connected, fully disabled. I believe the first reading tonight for the proposed ordinance on keeping livestock, specifically chickens, I have a few comments about that. First, I've read the ordinance amendment, and I have some thoughts about that. Beckley, Bluefield, Clarksburg, Charleston, Hurricane, Ranson, Weirton, maybe others, they allow backyard chickens here in West Virginia. When I was in Idaho, while in the service, we kept a flock of 12 hens, and I did so for over 5 years. My family really enjoyed that. My kids were in 4-H, attended, the county fairs with their pets, and I think that was a good thing. Of the 7 cities I mentioned, none have limits restricting flocks under 8 chickens. The other 6 have no limits whatsoever under 20. And I just don't understand why Vienna would come up with the number 2. Now, about chicken coops and runs, as written, the height limit would be 6 foot max, which I believe it's too short. Are sheds equally limited in height in the city? I attempted to find out, but I just found out about this meeting today, and I didn't really have time to find that. I did see that in Vienna, sheds under 256 square feet do not require permits. And if sheds under 256 square feet don't require permits, why would a chicken coop that's limited to 150 square feet require a permit? So being required to build a coop under 6 foot maximum would be a bit difficult to me, because part of my disability was that I injured my spine while on active duty, and my height is above 6 foot. So it would require me to always bend over whenever I go inside the coop to do cleaning and proper hygiene and bio checks. Consider the shed requirements. And again, I couldn't find that out as far as height. I do know, walking through my neighborhood, all the sheds are over the 6 foot fences. Roosters. Now, I've never owned roosters, but of the other 7 cities in West Virginia, I found that allowed chickens, at least 5 allowed roosters. I believe it should be allowed here too, but following noise issues, just like the dog or whatever, if the rooster is overly noisy, just like a dog, we're adults, we should be able to take care of that ourselves, not be told in advance. Also, if we want to replace parts of our flock, roosters are required. So my specific request actions on this for your consideration. First, remove the 2 limit. There's adequate USDA and other departments as well that has research, and they show that the word flock doesn't mean 2. Flock is always 3 or above. Chickens are Chickens are naturally a type of bird that do best when they're kept together and they huddle, both for cold considerations as well as their mental overall health. I believe if you must impose some kind of a limit, start that limit at 8. No other city in West Virginia has a limit under 8. But allow individuals to request additional chickens once they can document proper care and housing. I think that's only fair. Second, it appears the city of Vienna does have, like I said, an ordinance where sheds under 256 square feet do not require a permit. So to me, it follows that if coops are limited to 150 square feet, or approximately 12 by 12, then they too should not require a permit. You have already written into the requirements to be 25 feet from inhabited structures, so it would be best, in my opinion, to remove the permit requirement for coops, and also remove the height requirement, or at least make it 6.5 to 7 feet for individuals who do need to walk inside the coop.
Mr. DeMoss, I'm sorry, sir, your time is up.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Tammy Rhodes.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about the same ordinance that the 2 have just talked about. I know when this was posted on Monday, the first thing I noticed was about the R1 district, and it just struck me because it's so small, and those areas are primarily in higher socioeconomic areas like Greenmont, Forest Hills, and Linwood, and other places. That bothers me because in this day and age, there is so many people struggling, so many families struggling, and they're facing financial insecurity, they're facing food insecurity, And chickens gives a part of the diet that could really help them survive. Anyways, when I started thinking about this, I knew that there were some ordinances in other cities that I'd seen on websites. And I called the planning director, Dan Brent, at Charleston, because they have a hens ordinance. And what he has told me, Charleston allows 6 hens max, no roosters. If you wanted a rooster or increased hens, you would have to apply for a conditional use permit. Same thing with some of our restrictions. You can't have any in the front yard. They are confined to a fenced lot. Now, his definition of that, a fenced lot can be a fenced yard, or it can be a fence around the hen pen. So that a yard that isn't fenced in could have a hen house and have a fence around it. The only problem with that, in Charleston, you're allowed to free graze your chickens if they're in a fenced lot, which means that you could actually have organic eggs. And I lost my train of thought. Anyway, but if you have to keep them in a hen house, you're not going to be able to do that. And they do allow them to free graze. They do not require a permit. There's no requirement for wing clipping at all. And the humane officer would handle, and I know we don't have one, would handle any nuisance complaints. He said that they can be allowed in duplexes as long as it's either fenced, the duplex has a fenced yard, or with an enclosed pen in the backyard. They must meet the setback restrictions, and there's no requirement for them to be 25 feet away from other inhabited residences. And talking to him, they passed this back in 2004. And he said that they did a ton of research trying to find out the best way to do the ordinance. When they passed that, they got calls from all over the country of people wanting to know about their ordinance and how to use it and adapt it for their cities. And he said many cities across the United States have adapted their ordinance since it was one of the early ones. He said the ordinance has been very helpful. He said it has not been problematic at all to have hens. He said it's very good for kids and for families. He said they have had no complaints of chickens flying over fences or of noise complaints or any other complaints. He said the only complaint they had was when some young chickens got out from a hole in a small fence and got outside the yard, and that's the only problem that they've had since they've had this ordinance. He said when they were doing their research that, and they allow 6 hens. The 6 was a good number to have. He said the chickens are very social animals and they do better with others, as well as the reasons that were just mentioned. But I wanted to go on. I brought a copy of their ordinance, but the screen's not up. This is it. It's printed large and it's 1 paragraph in true font. It's not 2 pages, which there's just a lot of stuff in there that really, in my opinion, doesn't need to be there. I think it's interesting at the beginning of this ordinance that it talks about no one being able to keep rabbits, horses, fowl, or flightless birds. Rabbits weren't in the last ordinance. Horses have their own ordinance. And fowl and flightless birds were not restricted previously either. So it's kind of like someone added some things to this, and the name of the ordinance doesn't reflect what's truly in this ordinance. The R1, again, is an issue. I've mentioned the duplexes, the free grazing, the
Ms.
setback.
Rhodes, your time is up, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
The minutes from the January 26, 2023 council meeting have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? To no objections, and the minutes will stand approved as posted. Mr. Leach is not here this evening, so I'll do the treasurer's report. You all received a copy of the reconciliation of funds. As you can see by that report, that the city is solvent and all of our bills are paid. We have no unfinished business this evening, and so we move to new business. The first item this evening is a presentation by Mr. Jack Mathers.
What I wanted to do this evening was just take a little bit of time and let you know who we've lined up for entertainment for the Freedom Festival this year. Freedom Festival is going to be held June 30th, Friday, Saturday, July the 1st. I think if you remember last year, we lined up pretty much one headliner for the festival, which was Home Free. This year, we've got 2 nights of entertainment lined up. Approximately 6 bands we've got lined up. 2 are local bands that'll be appearing. One is Insured Sound, which is local band Dawn Stats. They'll be opening on Friday night for us. One of the things about it, about Insured Sound, they played at the original Freedom Festival back in 1984, so we thought it was some nostalgia to have them appear this year, and they're excited about appearing at it. Another person in the band that will be appearing on Saturday night's a local band by the name of Sour Mash String Band. We're trying to cover all genres of music that we possibly could. So those will be the 2 openers. Now on to the other 4 performances, and I'm going to show you a little bit of each one and tell you a little bit about them. One of the first bands that will be appearing, and they're going to be on Friday evening, one of the first people, is Huey Mack. Huey Mack's out of Morgantown, West Virginia. He then, I guess, went to the Los Angeles scene, a lot of music there, reached number 8, number 89 on the Billboard. Then I guess he went quiet for maybe, or went a little bit quiet for a 2-year period, as I understood, came back with a country-inspired album called The Cozy Bar. The Cozy Bar has a song on it that features Brad Paisley. He's also performed with Charles Wesley Godwin and Lauren Weintraub. So I'm going to show you a little video. Some of you probably seen this. It was circulating on Facebook. Remember, he's from West Virginia. So show a little bit of Huey Mack.
Jack, move your microphone down.
I don't know why the sound's not working. I'll start it from the beginning, not from the, I'll have to play it from the speak, because I don't know why the sound's looking on the TV. I have to figure that out. Yeah, but for some reason the sound's just not coming out. Put up that microphone.
Take me back home. I feel like I've been away for way too long. I've seen the world, I sang these songs. I changed so much since I've been gone. Sometimes I miss who I was those days. There's so much that I didn't know. It was you and me, those bright green eyes and those old country roads. Dear West Virginia, you've been so good to me. I'm sorry if I had to leave, but I just...
Yeah, he's got, a West Virginia following to him, comes out of the Morgantown area. I like the idea that he's redefined himself. He's come out. This video was very popular with a lot of people because we were getting contacted saying, hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this? have you seen this? So he will be appearing on Friday evening. The next one is a girl by the name of Sarah Allison Turner. She's going to be appearing on Saturday evening. To tell you a little bit about her, she began singing, and her father was a minister, so she started singing out in churches. As a young girl, one day she used to go into her closet and write poetry. So she would write poetry, and as she was in her closet one day, she started adding music to it. Her dad heard it, and he was really inspired by what she had written, and he said, "I tell you what, hon, if you write 2 more songs, I'll take you to Nashville to a diner there, the Bluebird Diner." And I guess she did that. She went to the Bluebird Diner. She started writing music. Later in life, she went to Tennessee College, a college in Tennessee, but Middle Tennessee State University. She didn't go to college much. She spent most of her time in Nashville on Music Row. She, after being in Nashville for some time, she did some odd jobs, did some waitressing. She got picked up by when people learned about her, and she started making albums, started making music. She has earned cuts with Alan Jackson, Gretchen Wilson, Randall King, Walker County, and many more. One of her songs, Hope, was picked up for an episode of Grey's Anatomy television show. She shared the stage with Cody Johnson, Walker Hayes, Martina McBride, Leanne Womack, and she has a new song that just came out called Lemonade last week. But I really like this song right here that we're going to do next. Sarah Allison Turner, and it's a song about John Denver.
Miss the mountains, I miss mama. I miss that old porch swing. I miss supper time, laundry lines, and not worrying about a thing. So I pulled out this old record, ain't played it in a while. Every time I do, it makes me smile. Ain't a car out on the highway, ain't a plane up in the air, ain't a long train on the fast track, hauling me back there. But when I drop the needle, I know I'm gonna be alright. John Denver won't take me home tonight.
The next band that'll be closing out for us on Friday evening is a throwback band, one that we actually talked about trying to get last year. We weren't really able to get them. It's a tribute band. It's by the name of Tusk, and they do Fleetwood Mac music. Time we were trying to get them, there was a debate going on. They were offers from, I believe, San Diego to appear in San Diego, appear in Vienna, West Virginia, and I mean, is there really any question where you'd want to appear at? So they're going to be coming to Vienna. They're going to be closing out on Friday evening. And I think when you see them, they've got an unbelievable chemistry that they tell you that really makes their band, and they replicate Fleetwood Mac, just not in sound, but in their appearance. So. So then that brings us to who the closer is on Saturday night. I don't know if it was last fall, I was watching television and it was America's Got Talent. There was a young man that was on there that was definitely dynamite, and a lot of energy, and but it didn't cross my mind if we could get him here yet. And later on I got a telephone call, because now that people know that we're doing this, it's like, did you see this? Did you see this guy? I said, yeah, I did. And he was back on another show, on the same show, because he went further in the show, and I saw it that week, and I got more telephone calls. And that's when we started talking to Rick Modisett, because Rick Modisett Associates has helped us line up all 4 of these bands, and they've been a big help. And I'm sure I've really, at times, pushed Rick to his limits with questions and everything that we've been through, because we've looked at a wide variety of entertainment. But anyway, this person appeared on America's Got Talent. They got to number 5 on Billboard's Emerging Artist chart. They skyrocketed to number 1 on the iTunes All Genre Top Albums. They hold positions number 1, 2, 3, and 5 on iTunes Country Video chart. And the young man, he's one of the things he's famous for is portraying Elvis Presley in the movie Nobody. So the person that we got that'll be closing out the Freedom Festival on Saturday night is Drake Milligan. And he was a performer on America's Got Talent. And there were other people at the same time. We got another one that we just got lucky at. We were right in. I was literally talking to Rick, finalizing some conversation, and he got a telephone call, and it was another venue, another place wanting this person. So can you play Drake, please? I'm gonna let this play a little bit.
What's your name? Drake Milligan. And I see you're going to be singing?
Yes, sir, I believe. I'm Drake Milligan. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, and I'm a country music singer. I was a pretty normal Texas kid. I grew up a lot hunting, a lot of fishing. My dad runs a scrapyard, a multi-area country household. When I was about 7, I was out eating with my family, and there was an Elvis impersonator at the restaurant, and I was enthralled. And that's where I decided that I wanted to be like Elvis. Well, it was cute at first. I put on the jumpsuits, I was dyeing my hair black, but it probably wasn't until one of the first times I got on stage and sang some of my own songs. I figured, man, this is something I can do. I can pave my own way. But I've got my band with me, and those guys are awesome. I've been watching America's Got Talent since I was a kid, and I really just dreamed as a kid of being up on that stage. Very nice to meet you. Who are you? I'm Drake Milligan from Fort Worth, Texas. I'm guessing you're going to be singing today. Yes, sir, I will be singing. You're amazing. I don't know how you do it. I'm done awesome. Now, I'm presuming that you gig around, the state or the country. Well, I'm based out of Nashville now. I've been recording my own songs here lately, and been out with my band. We've been on the road and making stories and telling lies. Yeah. Out of interest, how many roughly new artists get signed in Nashville per year? It's not very many. It's not, is it? So you think this is the platform to showcase your talent best? Absolutely. Back in the day, Elvis had the Ed Sullivan Show. Right? Yep. The Beatles did too, and I see this kind of on the same scale. Absolutely. Staying too long at the honky-tonk, spending too much just to tie one on. A little less right and a lot more wrong. Sounds like something I do. I'm sick with fish and biting, taking skirts with the crowd flying, keeping one eye on the next horizon. Sounds like something I do. I never had a reason, girl, to go around. I walk through the day like this.
So that's pretty much the lineup. I think it's really going to be a good lineup. I think it's going to be quite a draw for everything. Like I say, a lot of people put a lot of work really into getting as far to figuring out what the bands are expensive, very expensive. And we're right in the process right now of fundraising for the festival, even though we've already signed contracts for everything. The other band I do want to tell you about, because I don't want to slight them in the least little bit, it's the 249th Army Band that appeared last year right in the heat of the day, and they right in the sun. They never complained. Had their own stage out on a 96-degree blacktop day. They performed. I've been back talking with Commander Jeremiah Bennett. They're interested. They're wanting to come back. He's been traveling. I've spoke with them all because, you know, we're looking about could they appear inside the mall during the day and then maybe appear outside on the stage. Trying to work that out. But I'm going to be meeting with them all here, if not tomorrow, the first of next week, and then put something together with Jeremiah and see what we can do. So I think it's a pretty good lineup of entertainment. Most of these people that you saw, individuals, are traveling with bands. Sarah Allison Turner's, and I think, has got a 5-piece band that'll be coming with her. So I'm pretty excited myself to see it. And there's a lot more going on with the festival, but I just wanted to get you this update, get you started on what we're having reviews.
Jack, thank you very much. I thank your committee too. You know, it takes you a whole year's worth of planning to put this thing together, and I think it's going to be great. So congratulations on getting those artists, and we look forward to the festival.
Yep, thank you.
Second item on our agenda this evening is an ordinance on first reading. It's an ordinance creating utility restoration details, setting out utility restoration details for sidewalk replacement, asphalt overlay, and resurfacing heel in. Type E, the pavement trench, concrete pavement. Type C, pavement trench, asphalt concrete pavement. Type A, pavement trench, and asphalt over concrete or brick. The ordinance is, be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that whereas the City of Vienna does not presently have specifications for the repair, replacement, or restoration of asphalt over concrete or brick, asphalt concrete pavement, resurfacing heel ends, and sidewalk replacement as it relates to roads, streets, or ditches that are to be repaired, restored, or replaced due to infrastructure and utility-related projects. It hereby adopts the following. And there are several clauses in this thing that go with this, but the basic part of this is this basically brings us up to the West Virginia standards that we as a city are required to match. And it also requires the contractors that do the work in our cities to replace our streets and sidewalks and anything else that they disturb back to the standards that the state of West Virginia has set up. All right? And that is the purpose of this. So I'll entertain a motion on first reading for the ordinance creating utility restoration details.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the ordinance on first reading, creating utility restoration details. Is there any discussion?
I just had one quick question. Reading through it, I think, you know, it's good that we're trying to create some standards for this, especially knowing that Hope Gas is coming to do a lot of work here in the near future. So I understand why this is kind of coming out right now. The one question I had under sidewalk replacement details, it says concrete shall be 4 inches thick unless otherwise noted, 6 inches thick where the sidewalk crosses the driveway, with a 2-inch minimum thickness in either instance. I don't know what exactly that means, and Craig, I don't know if you know either, but that was just one of the things I noticed in there that didn't quite make sense to me, because if it's 4 inches thick minimum or 6 inches, then why is there a 2-inch minimum thickness?
Which place is that?
It's yeah, that's kind of what I. Okay, because it's under section F, sidewalk replacement details, and then under concrete sidewalk, number 3. And I don't know if that's, I just want to make sure that we're covered there and not leaving ourselves to like allowing for a 2-inch thick concrete slab somewhere that's going to crack in a year. But that was my only question on that, so. Okay, okay.
If I may, further down under paragraph G, diagrams and technical drawings, most of the things that you've got that is listed throughout the ordinance are the descriptions, specifications, and so forth that the engineer drafted as part of a series of drawings to deal with this. And the sidewalk one was one of the one that was a little more difficult to turn into text. So to try to cover that, diagrams and technical drawings clarifying the above specifications are on file with the City of Vienna Public Works Department. They shall be consulted for clarification for any repair, restoration, or replacement work. And the intent is that Craig has these drawings on file that I think will be a little more clear if that becomes an issue, and they have to be consulted before the project can go forward.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think so. I guess that was kind of my question, is what would take precedent there than the technical drawings or as it's written in this ordinance?
Well, they're supposed to be part and parcel together.
Okay.
But it's just difficult the way our ordinances are set up to put drawings in the ordinances. And so I don't know that one takes precedence over the other. They're part of the same thing.
Okay. Okay.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll call for the question then. All those in favor of the ordinance creating utility restoration details on first reading, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed? Motion carries. It will be continued to the next council meeting for the second reading, please. Item number 3 this evening is an ordinance on first reading amending public utilities. And that is an ordinance amending 923.01 public utilities, changing the continuing bond amount from $10,000 to $50,000. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it amends 923.01 public utility to post bond to pay for damages to public property, city notification required, as follows. Every public utility provider shall execute a continuing bond in a form prescribed and accepted by the city finance director with satisfactory corporate surety in the amount of $50,000 payable to the City of Vienna. The remainder of the ordinance remains unchanged. The purpose of this ordinance is simply to increase the dollar amount. As you all are aware, the cost for replacement of a lot of our sidewalks and streets has gone up considerably. And so $10,000 will not cover if it is a large project. So that is the reason for this. I'll entertain a motion on first reading for the ordinance amending 923.01 public utilities, changing the continuing bond amount from $10,000 to $50,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the ordinance on first reading. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Please record that for the next council meeting for second reading. Third item this evening is, that's the fourth item this evening, is an ordinance on first reading amending 505.06, keeping livestock and adding regulations related to raising hens on R1 single-family zoned residential property, as well as related structures and the penalties for violating said regulations. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it hereby amends the keeping livestock ordinance as follows. Russ, do you want to take us through those?
It's essentially we're amending two ordinances. The first is amending the general definition for keeping livestock, and it limits the types of animals that can be raised. And we did that part and parcel since we're going through and there's an ordinance here that proposes to allow individuals to raise hens on their property. So you have to have a permit. It has to be on in an R1 zone with a single family, have an occupied single family residence on site. It talks about that the hens can only be kept in a hen house with an enclosed pen. They're still subject to accessory structure or setback provisions. That you have to be built to our building code requirements as far as fence heights and so forth, including, fence heights. You're not allowed to have them in front yards. There are limitations on, there's a limitation on the hen house that it shall not exceed a height of 6 feet. Can't be a nuisance. Ownership is a responsibility of the person. So the ownership, custody, care, control of the animals is responsibility of the person who lives on the property. This has a limitation for 2. No roosters. Hens have to be kept in a lot. You can't keep any other type of fowl with them. The flock's not for commercial use, so you can't raise eggs. And honestly, 2 hens is not going to generate a lot of eggs. You have to take care of the dead animals. You have to keep the animals on the parcel. You have to keep them in a hen house that's not bigger than 150 square feet. You have to keep your feed stored securely. You have the same penalties that a person who has dogs or any other animal that runs a large. It allows for the police or the code enforcement officer to do it. And then there's a penalty. And the penalty is exactly the same as for dogs that run a large. Misdemeanor is that's just the word there. And we're creating a regulatory body. I mean, we could change it if it made people feel better. We could change it to a civil penalty, but it's a misdemeanor is anything that's punishable by less than a year in jail and less than $5,000 fine. Less than a year in jail. We don't put people in jail in city court in the city of Vienna. So, I mean, that's essentially it. The original draft, there have been multiple drafts of this ordinance done. The height requirement was considered. That's why there's a requirement in there that the animals, one of their wings be clipped, is because you don't want to create a situation where you have neighbors saying, well, you can have a fence for the chickens that's over 6 feet, but I can't have a fence over 6 feet in my backyard. So you're trying to keep it consistent and also accommodate the possibility that animals could escape from the fenced-in pen. Essentially, I mean, that is the sum and substance of the ordinance.
I'll entertain a motion for a motion for approval on first reading of the ordinance amending 505.06, keeping livestock.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the ordinance on first reading amending 505.06. The gentleman that spoke earlier about his height, there are always variances available. If it's an issue where we need to allow an extra accommodation, that will be done on a case-by-case basis, because in order to comply with this, you have to get a building permit in order to do that. So, a 6 foot wouldn't help me a bit because I'm not 6 foot tall, but if that is something that you would need to accommodate you, then I'm certain that we could look at that. As far as the limiting the amount of the hens to 2, I have to be honest with you, for years I have been against this ordinance. I absolutely love 4-H. I think it's wonderful for kids to have projects, but I'm also a firm believer we live in a city. And so if you would like to raise farm animals, if you want pigs or chickens or whatever it is, you need to live in the country. But times have changed. And so over the years, there's a lot more people that have come and said, hey, we'd like to have chickens. Chickens are expensive. Our eggs are expensive. And so when Mrs. Elam brought this ordinance forward, I agreed to co-sponsor it with her simply because times are changing. All right. And so when you look at the limitations that are in here, it's one of those things where I believe that we need to give this a try in a limited basis before we just throw it open. You all may not believe this, but there are some people in town that are not very responsible with dogs or cats or pets or children. And so to limit them to this number and require them to do the restrictions as far as the fenced in yard and the hen house and all of that, I don't believe that that's a overly burdensome requirement. From my personal experience, as I said, I'm very much in favor of 4-H. I have supported 4-H for many, many years. And so years ago, when a person came and said that they wanted to have rabbits for their 4-H project, that they were only going to have 2, their kids were, raise these for their show, I agreed to that. Well, after that same neighbor has accumulated in excess of 100 rabbits, I believe that some people take advantage of that. And my opinion on this is that the limitations are fine. If we live with them for a while and things don't go too crazy, then we can always come back and revisit that. And if it turns out that having 4 or 6 doesn't really change the dynamic, then we'll revisit that. The other issue that concerns me about some of the limitations that are in there is our ability to enforce the maintenance of these animals. I don't care what kind of fence you put up. At some point, you're going to get a hole in that fence. It just happens. Well, we don't have an animal warden, and we're not going to ask our police officers to go out in the neighborhoods and chase chickens down. I'm sorry, we're just not going to do that. And I can cite for you an example today of a situation that occurred that unfortunately we're going to have to deal with. The police department received a call today about a cat that was hit by a car on one of our streets. And we get them a lot. It's usually a deer out on Rosemar Road or whatever, but this was a cat. And so we dispatched our people over to, pick up the animal. Well, when the guys got there, the animal wasn't dead. It was just severely hurt. And so we tried to make arrangements to get it taken care of, and he could not get those arrangements made. And so the parks director and I went over, and we took the cat to a local veterinarian. And unfortunately, the cat was hit so bad, or was injured so badly, that it did not survive. But that is another situation where, typically when we get these calls, we simply go out and we pick up dead animals. This one was not dead. And so we're not set up to maintain, an injured live animal. We're just not. But yet we're not going to let an animal suffer. And so I firmly believe that if we start out at this level, we can revisit it in the future. And if it warrants it, then it certainly can be amended very easily to increase the numbers or whatever other things we need to consider. So what other discussion is there on this item?
I can go first, I guess. I'm actually not sure how I feel about this ordinance, because I've got a lot of feedback that's been for the ordinance, or for chickens, having chickens, and against having chickens. And I personally, not something I would want to do, and knew very little about it, but I've spent some time looking into some things and trying to understand a little bit better. But I can understand what you're saying, Mary. You start out slow and see if it works out and then move forward. But I feel like this this ordinance as amended it ensures failure in one way, okay? Because of some of the limitations that are in it. So I feel like, you're kind of saying you don't really want it when I read through this ordinance the way it is. But I had a couple questions, and then I have a couple amendments I would like to offer up. One of my first questions is about the rabbits, because the way this is written, it just says rabbits, and I think it would be better to be more specific to say outdoor rabbits, because of course people have rabbits inside their home. I know that sounds like maybe it's particular, but I think that language matters. And I don't understand why horses is in this at all. because that's already addressed in 505.02. We do have horses in Vienna. There's at least one that I'm aware of. So I don't even know why that's in there. I don't know the best way to go about this, Mayor, because the last time I amended some stuff, there were some questions about how to proceed with that, so I don't want to get myself snagged. How should I proceed with amendments?
Well, I think what I would recommend is that we let the rest of the discussion go.
Okay.
And then if you care to amend it after you hear the other comments, then you're welcome to do it at that time. So let me clarify two things for you if these are in your thoughts. First off, I had absolutely nothing to do with the drafting of this ordinance. So the language that you see in there doesn't reflect anything on me personally. Like I say, this was not my agenda item to bring forward once I read it, okay? And the second thing is when you talk about clarifying the language on rabbits, the rabbits that are right next to me, there is not a wild rabbit in the bunch. They are the most gorgeous white rabbits that are about that big. And they're typically the ones that you would see in your home. These are not jackrabbits or whatever. They have got names where these are show rabbits. I mean, they're quality. So that limitation that you're considering, it doesn't work because you're not going to catch wild rabbits and put them in a pen. And so the rabbits that I've had experience with, they're pets.
Yeah, no, that's not what I was saying at all. I was just saying I don't want people that actually keep rabbits, domesticated rabbits in their homes, to be affected by this ordinance. Just rabbits that are outside, in a rabbit hutch or whatever.
Okay. So anyway, and we'll come back, Kim, if you're thinking of how you want to word it, but any other discussion?
Well, I know after Kim and I talked earlier, and I do have a question, Russ, just about why is it limited to R1? Where was that just something that we're just starting with, or can we, it isn't a very big area.
You can change it to whatever you want. It's this was designed to be a framework to put something out to start something. Okay. The rationale between limiting it to R1 is those are single-family housings, or single-family dwellings, and they typically have the larger yard. And if people are going to have, and when you have animals like chickens and you put a chicken coop in your yard, generally that just affects you. But if you live in a multi-family unit where the property may have a smaller green area, it affects your neighbors, and your neighbors may not want that. They may, but right now it was limiting it just purely on the size constraints, the ability to keep the animals in an area that's suitable to raise animals. It was also designed, the intent of this was originally designed for 4 animals, but it was requested to be changed. But right now it's R1 because that's where the single family dwellings are. We can put it in, we have a mobile home park, I think that's our R4. You have the apartments, the R3. I suppose you can keep them on the roof, like you would in some of the big cities. R2s, if your landlord doesn't put a stop to it, I suppose, or whomever is renting out the multi-unit, they could still put an end to it, I suppose. But generally, that was the idea. Those were the areas that had the green spaces that were large enough to accommodate a coop, a fence, and animals.
Is that something that, so in an R2 area, let's say you're renting a home or renting an apartment or a duplex or something, and you want to do it, is there a way we could say limit that, or say as long as you have permission from the landlord, or?
I'd rather, yes, you could do that. Yes, you could put language in there that says it's an R2 with permission of the landlord. I'd prefer we just stay out of tenants and landlord business and let them deal with it themselves. You could expand it to R2 if you wanted, just by amending it to R1s and R2s. But the thought was R1s are, like I said, single-family homes, and they have the green space to accommodate the building, the coop, yard, and animal need requirements.
The logic behind part of that is if you have the home on the left or the townhouse on the left, whatever, that happens to have dogs, and then on the right-hand side, you end up putting a chicken coop in, dogs are just absolutely going to bark because of what, rabbits are moving around all the time and what have you. And it's just another noise factor that will disrupt the neighborhood. And now it's the same condition if you have dogs on the left and dogs on the right. They go up to the fence line and they try to establish their own territory, but that's the same argument. You will have additional items of interest right there. So, and again, and as Russ spoke, in discussing this with code enforcement, it was the recommendation to start out in R1 for the various reasons that Russ just gave you. It's, if it works in R1, then we certainly can try it in R2, and, Chris?
Yeah, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I have some similar concerns as Kim and maybe Melissa has brought up. It seems to be a little bit overly restrictive at this point, and I kind of understand wanting to start small with something like this, but some of those things kind of seem a little redundant because, if we have only R1, then I'm not quite sure what the 25 feet from any inhabited structure, some of these things kind of seem duplicated to me. So I guess, I'm in favor of this. Like, I would never probably personally have hens because I have a lot of other things to take care of. So I think this is like a good first draft, and I think that there are a lot of people out, even in the audience, that have much more knowledge than I do about keeping hens and how to raise them and the number of hens that are appropriate and things. So I guess, I would be interested in tabling this, taking a second look at it before we try to make a bunch of amendments and make things really messy. Invite some of those people that know a lot more about hens than probably I ever will, to be a part of that and kind of advise us. That way we can have a very well prepared ordinance without a lot of extra questions or concerns from all of us.
So are you making a motion to table this?
Yeah, so I would like to make a motion to go ahead and table this so that, we don't have to sit here and go through each line and kind of try to make amendments to things.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we table this item for discussion at a further meeting. All those in favor of tabling it, please signify by saying aye.
How do I?
Aye.
Pardon me?
Okay, now I have to count them. Who said aye? Okay,
3. All those opposed?
aye. We raising our hands.
Yeah, all right. So it's being tabled 3-2. So we'll save this for another meeting. Okay? All right. The next item on our agenda this evening is a bid approval. It's for the demolition of 204 37th Street. For all of you all that aren't familiar with 204 37th Street, a house caught on fire several months ago right there, and it has been in a absolutely deplorable condition for those months. And so there is no insurance on this, and there is no way to be rebuilt. And so we had sealed bids for the demolition of 204 37th Street. And were opened on February the 1st, 2023 at 10 a.m. with the following results. Empire Builders bid $18,000 for the demolition. Jimmy Harper Construction bid $14,500 for the demolition. After careful review of the bid proposals, the recommendation for council approval from the Budget and Finance Committee for the demolition of 204 37th Street is Jimmy Harper Construction in the amount of $14,500. Funding for this project will be from line item 01-725-40-30, pending council approval. It's the recommendation of Budget and Finance that we approve the low bid of $14,500 from Jimmy Harper Construction for the demolition of 204 37th Street. If the bid is accepted, once the house is torn down, we will put a lien against the property for the amount of $14,500 against the remaining lot. So I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the low bid from Jimmy Harper Construction in the amount of $14,500 for the demolition of 204 37th Street.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the low bid from Jimmy Harper Construction. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of accepting the low bid from Jimmy Harper Construction, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Next item on our agenda this evening is a bid approval for the financing of a 2022 F-250 truck for the Parks Department. Sealed bids for the financing of a 2022 F-250 truck for the Park Department were opened on Tuesday, January 24th, 2023 at 10 a.m. with the following results. United Bank bid 4.4% for 3 years for a total cost of $49,969.80. Country Roads Leasing bid 4.21% for a 3-year period for a total cost of $50,653.48. And West Banco bid 5.35% for a 3-year note in the amount of $51,110. After careful review of the bid proposals, the recommendation for council approval from the Budget and Finance Committee for the financing of a 2022 F-250 truck is United Bank in the amount of 4.4% for a 3-year term at $49,969.80. Just as a note, the 4.4 is a higher amount than Country Roads Leasing at 4.21. However, Country Roads Leasing has fees which they attach to the note, and so the total cost of the 4.4 is $49,969, whereas the 4.21% is $50,653.48. Funding for this project is budgeted in the city's general fund 01-540-40-19. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the financing from United Bank for 3 years at 4.4%, in the amount of $49,969.80.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the United Bank rate. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of accepting a United Bank bid of 4.4% for a 2022 F-250 Ford truck for the Parks Department, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next item on our agenda this evening is a bid approval for 2 F-450 or equal trucks for the street and the Parks Department. Sealed bids for the purchase of 2 F-450 or equal truck for the street and Parks Department were opened on January the 20th, 2023 at 9 a.m. with the following results. Matheny Motors was the sole bidder of $99,578 each for one of the F-450 trucks. After careful review of the bid proposals, a recommendation for council approval from the Budget and Finance Committee is for the purchase of 2 F-450 trucks from Matheny Motors in the amount of $99,578 each. Funding for these vehicles is pending financing. The payments for the trucks are budgeted in accounts 01-570-59 and at 0154-19. This truck was bid in prior years, but never came in, so this is a rebid for the Parks Department truck. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the sealed bid from Matheny Motors in the amount of $99,578 for a F-450 Ford truck.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the sealed bid from Matheny Motors. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Item number 8 this evening is a general fund budget revision. It's general fund budget revision number 3. It is to transfer $117,300 from capital reserve to cover the increase for the additional monies for the Phase 2 engineering for the swimming pool project. That money will come from the capital reserve, and it will go into 542-58 for the additional monies for the Phase 2 engineering. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of general fund budget revision number 3.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve general fund budget revision number 3. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So just to clarify, what is the total amount now that we are in for design to Omni?
402,000. No,
It was the
285.5.
The 285.5.
17 is for
17.
consultations as well.
Site evaluation.
Okay, so overall we're in like $420,000 just in design fees.
And this should be it.
Okay.
419.8.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of general fund budget revision number 3, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Item number 9 this evening is internal budget revision number 2. There is no new money associated with this. These are simply departments that are trying to reallocate some of their line items to balance for where they've had some unexpected costs or they did not have enough to begin with. There is one item on here that was left out of the budget in error. That was from the police department. It was for a pension. There was no money left in the pension for the investigative offense when we originally did the budget. That is $23,900. And so that's where that, the pension is where that is coming. The money is coming out of all right, so let's look at this. The money is coming out of the investigative expense in the amount of $23,900. It is being put over into the pension line item for 5507 in the exact same amount. This was left out of the original budget to begin with, so we're taking money out of one line item to balance that back. The fire department is asking to remove $5,000 for their training and education line item, and they want to transfer it to 500-17, the maintenance of their autos. They've had some apparatus that they've had extra repairs in. The Parks Department is asking to take money out of the travel line item and transfer it over to the maintenance of equipment also. The Parks Department is also removing $5,000 from the building and grounds, $1,500 from training and education, and $2,000 from materials and supplies to balance out the $10,000. As I said before, this is no new money. It is simply reallocating from one line item to the next to balance the accounts. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of budget revision number 2.
Second.
It's been moved and accepted. We approve budget revision number 2. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question or a concern. When you're taking out a pension line item, that pension has so far been, monies expended have been 73% of the budget so far, and I don't know, there's 4.5 months left. So it doesn't seem like we're going to be significantly, we have a significant money to finish out the pensions for the year. Taking this money out?
Yes, our pension contribution is far in excess of what we're required to do.
That wasn't my question, but...
All right, then ask your question again. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I thought you were worried about us having enough money to pay our contribution. It's already done.
Well, okay. Yeah, I'm concerned about it. For me, I don't like taking money out of a pension line item to cover, there was an error, that's fine, to take money out of the pension. That's why I'm questioning why it's taken out of pension to cover an error in the budgeting.
Okay. And I have to be honest, okay? Mr. Leach is the one that typically would make these presentations, and he had a family emergency, so he called me at around 5 o'clock to say he would not make it this evening, okay? If you give me a second, Kim, I'll ask for clarification from Russ and Melissa.
Yeah.
Okay? Take a look. Maybe I'm reading this wrong. All right? This is it right here. Moving.
That's what I see.
I said the same thing. Yeah, that was taken out of pension, moving it
Line item
into
45507.
Yeah,
And
into
being
administrative
replaced in 45533. And I know that it was a mistake. It was just something that was omitted when we did the budget last year. But if that doesn't satisfy you, I mean, I don't know how else to explain it, because I don't know.
No,
I just know that our pension is overfunded, that we're excellent. Tommy, you have a comment?
Was it an actuarial demand?
For this budget revision? No, it was something that we did not have in the original budget from last year that needs to be put in it.
So it's purely a mistake.
Yes, it was simply a clerical error that should have been included in the budget from when we did it last year.
Which has to be correct.
It does, there's no issue. I mean, I may not have the best explanation for Kim, but one way or the other, we have to fix this.
Are you just wondering why it's coming out of pension and not something else?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd like to finish what I was saying. I've been
Yeah.
interrupted, but so here's another question I have for you. Where does this? I know that we pay a police fee. Everybody that gets a water bill pays a police fee. Those fees, from what I can tell on the income side of the budget, those fees go directly to pay for pensions. Is that what we're talking about?
No.
What does the police fee go towards?
It goes to the police budget.
Right.
Now, I'm sorry, Kim, you know, if this is something that we need to lay over until the next meeting, it's very difficult to amend these internal budget revisions, so it will simply take another budget revision to rectify this. All right?
It's not my wish to amend it or to wait till the next meeting. I think it needs to be resolved this evening. But probably part of a bigger conversation as to why we have police fees if they're going into pensions, and why we're using pension money to shore up a mistake that mistakes
right.
happen in the
I'm
budget.
going to ask for a 5-minute recess. I'm going to call our finance director. I will get the answer and put this to bed. I'll be
well,
back.
No, they use it to pay pensions. They need to stop using it to pay pensions. I mean, it's not my intent to hold anything up. I mean, we need to go ahead and pass this. But I think when you have a situation where you're taking money out of pensions, that's a no-go for me, because I don't like that.
Mr. Scott, can I see you for a moment?
Sir.
Yes.
All right, let the record reflect we're back in session. I was able to contact our finance director, and she did give a very clear explanation. Mr. Skogstad, if you'll.
Amy said essentially the finance director said essentially we budgeted $430,000 in anticipation that might be what the requirement is for the matching fund, to match for the pension fund. And what happened was we met our obligation. It was below $430,000. So the $23,900 is coming from the difference between what we actually put into the pension and what we had budgeted for it. So that's being moved to investigation. So it's not being taken from the pension fund. It's just we estimated more than what we needed to so that the dollar amount was met for the pension fund. We've been reimbursed by the state. So the city met its obligation. No money's coming out of the pension fund.
Okay.
Okay.
And the line item where we set aside the amount of money, the $430,000,
$455.
now that we have already paid our pension obligation for the entire year, whatever the remainder is would not be touched because we only make one contribution a year. We pay ours in advance. And so in order to balance the police department's requirement to put $23,900 in $455.33, that money was sitting there and was not to be used for anything. We're not taking money out of our pension fund. These are excess funds that we set aside depending on what our obligation would have been.
Okay, well, I'll follow up with her about the police fee question. That's a little bit separate from that. So thank you for the clarification.
All right. Anything else?
It's actuarially sound.
It is, 100%. Okay. If there's no further discussion, then all those in favor of internal budget revision number 2, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Last item on our agenda this evening is an update on the Jackson Pool. Recorder Elam, please.
Yeah, it's just a short update. The work from Martin Aquatic has not been completed yet, so Omni does not have all of that from them to complete the design process and for the bid specs. So we're still waiting on that to get finished. And the design team, we have not met with Omni yet. They're going to be sending us dates. It should be soon, but I know that they were waiting for a little bit more information from Martin before they proceeded with a meeting with us. So once they do that, then they'll come here to Vienna and meet with us. And shortly after that, we should be able to wrap it all up and have it ready to go out for bid.
Any other council comments this evening?
Yeah, I have just a few comments if I can kind of steal everyone's time here. Tonight we've covered a few topics that are definitely important and need to be addressed. But I've been feeling a little bit frustrated in some of the, I guess, just lack of direction and feeling more reactionary than being proactive in our decisions and agenda items. Now that we're kind of in this new year, I would love to see council be a little bit more proactive in our kind of planning out the year, especially with budget season coming up. I think that we really need to be leading the community as council members to make Vienna desirable. And so I think that there are many kind of tangible issues that aren't being addressed. A couple of those being, I haven't been able to get any updates on the Hope Gas project that I mentioned earlier. I know that that's a very big project that's coming, and we had asked for some kind of a presentation from them or informational meeting. So, I don't even know when they're starting or where exactly they're doing work or how it will affect traffic. And I feel like we need to get that out to the public so that we can be prepared for that. Another item would be something like Dredging Pond Run. We talked about that a while ago, but I don't even know if that's something that we're still doing. I think we need to kind of really figure out some of these bigger action items as a city and as a council. One of the other things that I am a little bit concerned about still is how we are going to fund the costs for the pool. I know we had talked about this previously and kind of accepted some methods to that, such as grants and from our general fund and a bank loan. But I still haven't heard, how have we successfully applied for grants at this point? How many have we applied for and for how much money? These are questions that I have as a council person, so I'm sure that people in our community have those questions as well, and we really need to address these. Also, I have been asking about a comprehensive plan, and that's something that I actually ran on to take this position, is wanting to get a comprehensive plan established. West Virginia State Code mandates that we do this every 10 years, and that was back in 2007 was our last comprehensive plan. I know WVU has been working on a county-wide plan, and I've actually had communications with that person, but it keeps getting delayed, and there's not really any indication of when that'll be done. Even when it gets done, I'm not sure how it will apply to the city of Vienna directly, and I want to be proactive and really make an impact in the city and sitting here on council. I bring these up, and there are many other small examples, such as we have an IT director position that's still open, cameras in our parks that aren't still working properly. We have Spencer's Landing to deal with, the Johns Manville remediation. And I bring these up not to be negative. These are all really great opportunities as council to kind of address these topics. And I hope that as we come into this next budget, we can really have some proactive thinking about some of these larger items, and really make Vienna a desirable place for residents and future businesses. That's kind of why I ran to be in this position. And so I hope that, in the next few weeks, we can discuss ordinances on hens and everything like that as well, because those are important. But I also hope that we can kind of be proactive and really think about some of these other items that I've brought up this evening. Thanks.
Any other council comments this evening?
Well, I have a council comment, and my comment's not to be negative either, but I'm going to name some cities here for you. Parkersburg, Williamstown, St. Mary's, Spencer, Moundsville, Elkins, St. Albans, Nitro. Those are just a few of the cities in West Virginia that use Robert's Rules as a way to conduct their meetings, as a parliamentary procedure, the underpinnings of how their meeting is conducted. When I was looking at just doing a search to see what cities don't have a parliamentary procedure of any type, it's really super hard to find, okay? And because most cities have either, Robert's Rules, or they have some council rules, or a combination of both. And I think that rules are very important. Robert's Rules makes meetings run smoothly. They ensure everyone gets a voice, maintains order. Under Robert's Rules, you have majority rule, minority rights, and as council members, we have rights. And so earlier tonight, I had, on that hen ordinance, I have several things that I wanted to amend, but I wasn't really sure what the procedure was going to be, because last time when I amended something, I was told I couldn't amend, an amendment couldn't be made to an amendment, and it just got super confusing. I think it was said last meeting that Robert's Rules would not work in Vienna. I don't understand why they wouldn't work in Vienna. They work in cities smaller than Vienna. They work in cities larger than Vienna. It was also said by a council member that Robert's Rules were largely archaic. They're not. Robert's Rules is the most widely used parliamentary procedure in the United States. So I think it's time for us to get some rules, and I hope in upcoming weeks that I can, I intend to be able to work with some other council members to try to come up with some rules to have some better procedures for our meetings. I think they would, rules would definitely make our meetings go more smoothly, quicker, and everybody gets to be heard. So that's my council comment.
We've discussed Robert's Rules of Orders for years. And if the majority of this council chooses that that's the structure that they would like to have the meetings conducted in, then I absolutely will adhere to that. As I've said in the past, and I still firmly believe that we run as efficient, if not more efficient, council meetings than any of our cities that are around us. And so if the majority of this council feels that we need to change that, I'll do whatever is requested of me to do. All right? On that same token, I would like for every one of the council members that are part of this to make a better effort to educate themselves, because some of the issues that came up this evening have been previously discussed. Obviously, the budget revision number 2 was discussed Tuesday at Budget and Finance. And so there's been at least 3 days where you had an opportunity to ask questions of anything you didn't understand and get clarification. And some of the other items that were brought up this evening have been discussed multiple times regarding the comprehensive plan, regarding other items. And, you know, we have a very young IT department right now, but I do believe that the 2 gentlemen that we have are learning to work together. And as of today, there are 0 cameras anywhere in the city of Vienna that are not working. We check them every day when the city comes up. There are none. Every camera in every area of the city is operating today. Every one of them. Okay, so we have no issues with that. And so the other items, as far as the IT goes, you know, the two gentlemen that we have are very, very knowledgeable in various phases of the city's IT needs. And so I think it's working very efficiently. The other issues that you deal with on a daily basis are the fact that we have equipment shortages. There are some items that we have been waiting months to get, and there's just no way to speed it up. So once you're able to get the parts that you need, then things are being installed, and you know, our IT department is in excellent shape at this time. So at any rate, if you want to be more involved, I think you need to pay attention. Some of the things that were brought up this evening, the utility board has been working on them for literally months. The pond run, we've applied for grants. We're still waiting to see if we get a consideration from the Soil Conservation Service. It's a lot of money. The stormwater plan, we've already approved the first phase of that from Burgess and Nyepel, and so now we move to the second phase. And so these items that are not being completed are in actuality moving along very well. So if you would simply be more involved, then these things would not be questions to you. So with that.
Wait, I'm going to have some more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to give, just let people know, we had our park board meeting last night. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of reiterate what you had brought up about the trailer that has been Steve Black's office. The issue of getting, we've got to get Segra to come in and move the equipment that runs all the Wi-Fi for that area down there. It has to be moved to the rec building. So that has to take place. And then the gentleman that we originally got the trailer from is going to come in and move it for us and move it over to near the maintenance garage at the back, kind of where the dog park and that area is, off to the side. So Steve will still be able to utilize that as his office. It'll just be relocated there. So as soon as those things happen, then we will be able to start moving the dirt and getting that done. And I believe you said within the next 2 or 3 weeks, that should all be done. Is that right? You said 2 or 3 weeks.
The work order has been submitted for Segra to move the box. The moving company has already been engaged. Everything else is ready to go. I anticipate the trailer to be moved and reestablished over beside the other maintenance buildings within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, awesome. So even if those new fields that are going to be put in there where the trailer area is, if they are not ready yet, we do have we're still playing 7 days a week. We've got plenty of room. And so we're not concerned about that at all. So registration for upcoming seasons are going well for baseball and softball. And we've had a lot of interest in softball, probably mainly because Rob is a softball guy. So we're thankful for his leadership and looking forward to a good season.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
Yes,